Welcome everybody to Reality Change with Kris. This is our, I believe it's our third show in our new digs. My name is John Hawkins. Very happy to welcome you to my friend Serge Granbois.
Thank you, John. And happy to be here with the assistance of our producer, production manager, whatever title he wishes to assign to himself, Michael. And looking forward to another nice hour.
Okay. Now, as everybody knows, I'm sure by now, the whole point of this is to get some input from Kris, who is the non-physical personality of some stature that Serge channels. So, without getting too involved in anything else, I think we should best just get straight to Kris, if that's possible. Now, this process is always worth thinking about. What's actually happening here?
Now we trust that you are comfortable.
Thank you.
And we thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Kris.
And we also extend an appreciation to Michael. It is an important function. Without his expertise, this would simply not be. And in many respects, without each of your individual expertise, none of your realities would exist, nor would they matter. And we have to specify and clarify. We did not say reality would not exist.
No, our realities.
Your reality, meaning your experience of it. Because reality exists as something completely different. But your experience of it, your individualized telecasts, if you like, your individualized dramas, are again different from reality. They are your experience of reality. So when you become more and more aware of the processes involved in the creation of your experiences of reality, you can definitely, without doubt, exert the type of influence that changes the nature of your experience. And that is highly significant. At this moment, what is very topical is all the wars that the US of A has launched, all the wars they are still engaged in, all the wars other nations have engaged in, have launched and have maintained, how this one supplies the enemy, that one supplies the enemy, then the enemies become friends, then they supply each other to wipe out the others, and it keeps going on. There's a snowball effect.
If it wasn't war, it would almost be funny.
Indeed. Now, why is that at the forefront of everything else? Why is all this kind of information always in your face? And at times it is something else. How this famous movie actress broke a nail. how this one had a wardrobe malfunction. What is important for this one to eat for lunch or breakfast? Or what kind of dress or suit is that one wearing? This famous person has a hairstyle like this. And it goes on and on. Wars, fashion, gossip. The greatest and newest gadgets that will change your life, which usually mean very little. But there is hyperbole everywhere, correct?
Yes.
And it keeps being pumped at the general populace. And is the general populace any happier for all that information? Statistically speaking, no. In fact, it generates mass disgruntling, if you wish.
Okay. Anxiety, fear.
Anxiety and fear.
Or envy and, wanting, the celebrity side. It makes people, well, there's people who are saying that George Clooney's marriage is a tragedy for the women of the world.
Indeed. We will not comment on that particularly.
Okay.
But suffice it to say that on the one hand, you are being bombarded with the most horrifying, the most scandalous, the most heart-breaking news and information. And on this side, you are fed all of the classic fairy tales as a tidbit to help you, or to attempt to help you tolerate the other stuff.
Right.
But why is that so prominent in your culture, the culture of media and information?
You want me to answer?
Perhaps.
Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is that the world being a reflection of our own internal processes and focuses of attention means that all the wars are a reflection of us being at war with ourselves, and all the fashion nonsense and frivolity is us focusing on inconsequential puffery as opposed to what's real.
In part. And then you have another aspect of what is in the news. Masses, throngs of people marching for equality, salary or pay equality, equality of genders, equality and freedom in many, many places around the world. And the more this goes up, the more the orthodox and conservative elements also seem to raise their voices and their weapons to try and squash it all down. Because you have a series of upcoming shifts in consciousness. We're not talking about some big tsunamis, but there is a recognition that there is inequality on many, many issues. Inequality of poverty and riches, inequality of freedom and gender recognition, appreciation and respect for others. It seems that these begin in the grassroots movements. And these are important because they signify as coming from deep within you, yourselves. And if you did pay attention to the so-called still small voice within, those gentle whispers that come from self, sometimes coming in the form of dreams or inspiration, innovative ways to perceive the world and reality, creative ways to instill small but significant changes that produce a wellspring of benefits if applied, if considered and applied. So you have these various elements all vying for your attention. Now, on the one hand, you may shut off and shut out all forms of media and information and stick your head underneath the ground like the proverbial ostrich, though it has been observed that no ostrich actually does stick their head in the ground.
Oh, that's interesting.
But still, that information would find its way because it is about a very particular type of evolution. In fact, a revolution of consciousness, but that consciousness is very misunderstood by the masses. The masses scream for equality of gender, for equality of pay, and so many other issues. Freedom is also amongst these. But are these truly the issues at hand? That question has to be addressed somewhere, somehow. And what you have is a need for the populace, for everyone in one form or another to recognize first and foremost. They have within themselves the potential, firstly, to make the changes. But the changes are not necessarily what you are screaming for. The changes are a deeper recognition of your joyful, blissful nature. And when you bury it in one form or another, when you bury your true nature, it will make all attempts to be recognized again and again and again. And until you do, you will keep going back into these cycles of revolutions, creating new governmental systems, new managements for your societies, only to fall back into the same processes because you are not necessarily learning your lessons. We are not saying it to mean that you are here to learn lessons. But if you keep pricking your fingertip when picking the rose bushes on the thorns, then it might be worth noticing that there are other ways to pick the roses without getting pricked by the thorns. Do you follow?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if it's not working, then yeah, I think from what I hear you saying is that it's not just a reshuffling of existing elements to a better balance.
Indeed.
It's the emergence of new elements.
Yes. So that is what is going on in and around the world at this point in time. Because there is new creative energies wanting to take birth through your experiences. You are drawing them in, but you are not necessarily making the necessary arrangements nor room. It is perhaps like knowing that your relatives and company are coming to visit and stay for a while, and you are glad to see them, but you make no arrangements to feed and house them. And they bring tidings of joy, but these are not recognized nor are they appreciated because you don't make the room for them.
Okay.
So you must clear out your old agendas, and that involves many people cleaning out the old agendas and the old internal power struggles. many people are focusing upon and blasting the very rich. And there are quite likely some legitimate issues, of that there is no question. But until you put aside your obsession with concentrating on focusing only on the differences between the two classes of society, then you will continue to experience those polarities. And focusing upon the polarities creates duplicity.
Mm-hmm.
And that keeps generating more and more difficulties. Your governments have already proven throughout the world that none of them actually can provide any solutions, because they too are part of your problems, in a manner of speaking, because they can only reflect what you have elected. Does that make sense?
The blind leading the blind comes to mind.
In many respects. So why are we speaking and addressing these particular kinds of issues? Is it that we want to put down your societies and the way your social structures are established? No. On the contrary, our purpose is to bring a recognition, a realization. Open your eyes and open your minds, and mostly open your hearts to new solutions. Many individuals bemoan the fact that your world is going to hell in a handbasket, and it is fast tracking there. But none of that need to actually be. You have the abilities to make the necessary changes. You forget that you easily become consumed by your own fears. And those in the power structures are well aware of this, so they keep feeding you your own worst fears.
Fuckers.
And why do they do that? Because it is what you give them to do. They can all change, but it does not require an armed revolution, because none of these also work. It only creates bloodshed, and after some time you notice that the revolutionaries are no different than the previous oppressors, and thus the cycle continues again and again. Human beings want to love and be loved, and they want the freedom to do that in its various forms and expressions.
Doesn't sound that hard or complicated.
It should not be at all. But you also like some kinds of dramas. And that is a result of indoctrination, literal brainwashing. That is what we refer to as conditioned selves or egos. The conditioned ego functions on a very shallow, thin layer of suppositions. And that is being manipulated over and over again, because it is, for all intents and purposes, the only kind of experience you have regarding yourselves. But underneath that are vast oceans teeming with life, but the kind of life that you want. It is up to you to choose what it is that you want. Nobody is forcing anyone, and we are certainly not advocating the use of force in any way, shape, or form. But we are saying that if you come together and you investigate the very tools that you use to create what you do not want, then certainly you can use the very same tools to create what it is that you do want. That is significant. It is more significant than all the political power struggles throughout the world combined. But you have to switch and turn that switch on. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
It sounds like we are getting ready to run for political office.
Well, the question that leaps to my mind in the scenario you've laid out there beautifully, description of the world today, is this. Okay, we need to look within ourselves for the intuitions and the dreams and the whispers of the self, and not just recognize them, although that's important, but accommodate them, accept them, welcome them, and do the necessary around enlivening those ideas in our lives.
Indeed. And we have discussed this in the past. But behind all of that is one primal aspect of identity, the need to love and be loved. So if you cannot get that in a positive, constructive manner, you might collectively seek it out even in a destructive manner.
That's interesting. So the need to love and be loved can't be ignored. It's gotta happen either constructively or destructively.
Indeed. So it depends on how you want to use it. And just as electricity or fire is neither good nor bad, all depending on how you use it. But electricity or fire in and of itself is just a thing per se. You can use it to refrigerate and keep your goods longer, or you can use electricity to cause damage. You can use fire to keep warm and give you light, or you can use fire to burn down buildings. So the use of and application of is very, very important. And you have, each of you, that deep need to love and be loved.
Now, you said something a moment ago that I'm just going to follow up on because I just wanted a little bit of clarity. You said that if a person doesn't feel that they can love and be loved in a way that's positive and constructive, then we will find, the force is so powerful it can't be denied, we will find a destructive way. Can you just clarify, what would be, for instance, a destructive way of trying to be loved and to love?
Indeed. So you have, for instance, many, many individuals who cannot allow themselves to be loved. They are fearful, as well as fearful of loving, in the general understanding of the terms.
Sure.
Such individuals may develop addictions to various chemical substances or alcohol or behaviors that brings about a great amount of stress, angst, even destruction in theirs and their loved ones' lives.
Right.
We are not saying that it is an attention-getting device, but it certainly generates people to want to assist them.
Oh, I see.
However, that cannot be recognized. So then even the most loved ones become perceived as the enemy.
I see. So it's just a perversion, a twisted...
It is indeed a distorted reflection of the original intent.
Right. Okay. I
The most interesting thing is that whether you think of an other in the sense of a beloved or in the sense of an enemy, you will be thinking of them. You will be concentrating on them. you will have them in your awareness again and again.
That's true.
So whether it is the parents, the siblings, the neighbors, the wife or the husband or the children, the neighborhood, the authority figures, the government, you can flow with it or fight it. But still, it will be in your awareness, front and center.
Right. Well, that's very interesting. That's very helpful, actually. The idea that there's, it's not sufficient to simply place your attention on something. It's the attitude with which it's the kind of attention that you're placing on something that results in a positive or a negative outcome.
This is based upon both individual and collective belief structures. So and the belief structures themselves are rather benign. They are simply psychological constructs. How you use them is entirely a different issue. So we have in the past spoken about the three modes of material nature.
Right.
The goodness, the passion, and ignorance. This is taken directly from the Vedas.
Right.
And it is a poorly understood structure and concept. Because the modes of material nature are actually generated by each individual. So all three modes reside within the intellect of the individual. And depending upon the various beliefs held by the individual that results in behavior, you will have goodness, passion, and ignorance. So there are categories of beliefs that can be classified as within the mode of goodness.
I see.
Some in the mode of passion, some in the mode of ignorance, depending on how the individual uses them. And it is an important distinction to make, because you can automatically change the course of your personal and even collective history by recognizing such a simple thing. There is no war that can be justified as in the mode of goodness. There is no murder that can be justified as in the mode of goodness. These are all mode of passion and ignorance. But even from that platform, you can elevate your own consciousness in terms of the kinds of beliefs you adhere to. Because if your beliefs are such that everyone is suspect, all people are to be considered enemies, whether it is enemies of the state or enemies of the individual, then you develop serious distortions of consciousness. Does it make sense to you?
Oh, for sure. The other example that leapt to my mind when I was thinking about this, you were talking about how the modes, the three modes, can express the same ideal. For instance, let's say that raising your children up to be good human beings is the principle. Now, in the mode of ignorance, that means that you use tough love and you beat them into submission and you do whatever it takes to make them into carbon copies of you as much as you can. In the mode of passion, you take them to ballet and training and brain development and try and get them to be as smart, and you fool around with schools to try and get them the best passionate start in life. And in the mode of goodness, you teach them to appreciate who they really are and their place in the universe, and how much satisfaction they get from serving and loving. So the same principle, raise your children right, applied in three different modes.
Indeed. And it is a sufficiently good example. So it becomes important for human beings to recognize whom they want to be, where they want to be, and how they want to be, and even when they want to be.
When?
And to define all of this is why you want to be. But many of these types of inquiries are generally overlooked because everybody likes to think they know exactly who they are.
Conditioning.
And that is part of conditioning. Exactly. It is not necessarily a bad thing in and of itself, but you can broaden your own horizons to look beyond your upbringing, that there is life that extends beyond the four walls of your home and how you were brought up. How you were brought up should not be used as the measuring stick for all of reality.
Particularly other people's reality.
Indeed. So other people's realities are none of your business. But when you collectively all engage in a similar kind of activity and you recognize where on the scale of the three modes you are at and you are stuck there, then it behooves all of you to question the nature and the fabric of your society and the reality that you experience. Because when it is not the reality you desire to experience, not that it is somebody else's reality imposed upon you, but when you recognize that it is no longer bringing you the fulfillment, but out of habit you will keep chewing the same old gum, thinking perhaps after 10 years it will have a new flavor. It will not happen. So you have to get something new. And new means a new attitude, a new perception. And it is available, but you have to ask and look for it.
And accept it.
In some respects, that is why in the late 1800s, sages from the East started arriving to the West. Because already the system that was set up was doomed to failure on its own. It needed an injection.
In the 1600s?
In the late 1800s.
Oh, sorry.
Already.
The whole thing was a bust, and we had to start getting input.
It was heading that way.
Oh, that's interesting.
Now, it causes its own disturbances, its own kinds of disturbances. But when you know that there are some precious stones in the bottom of the lake, and you reach in for them and you pull them out, you also raise all sorts of mud and you make muddy water until such a time as it settles again and everything is clear.
Right.
So your Western culture needed an influx of what was initially rejected, that ancient wisdom, to marry the new visions of life, so that it would have both power and grace. Because it is one thing to have a powerful nation, but if it does not have that state of grace coupled to the power, it will simply be a bull run mad in the China shop.
Yeah, there's a couple of those out there now.
Just a few. So now we suggest a small break.
All right. Thank you, Kris. We're back. Now, as usual, we've got just one or two announcements before we invite Kris back. The first one is Origo Books.
Yes, at 49 Lower Jarvis in Toronto. It's on Tuesday, the 14th of October, 6 to 8 p.m. A nice little, I guess, couple of hours discussion on what Kris called the Zen of channeling.
Right.
And that should be interesting because I'm going to talk a little bit from my experiences about it, and then from Kris's point of view, sharing with the audience. There are some spots available at Origo Books, that's Origo.
Origo.
Oh, that's right, Origo books, and they can be found online. So we look forward to seeing you there. Those who are in Toronto, of course, but you can, fly in from any part of the world. There's no objection to that.
And if you ask for travel, there's no charge, and you don't even take up a chair.
Yes, that's very convenient and practical too.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have our Wednesday evening international sessions with Kris, which can be, the information on that can be found on our website, which is Lotus, L-O-T-U-S dash or hyphen M-I-N-D, lotus-mind.ca, and just look on the left-handed menu bar for international sessions. This is a very, very nice opportunity to interact with Kris, especially if you've never done it. The details on what you need and how to participate are all there.
Yeah, and you get to ask questions.
Yeah, and it can prove very, very neat. I mean, what can I say? No.
Okay, well, now we were having a very interesting discussion about, the last 200 years of Western civilization, basically. So, welcome back, Kris.
Indeed. So, as we were mentioning, the late 1800s brought about significant changes, mainly with the Industrial Revolution. Mm. So your worldviews shifted at that point.
Okay.
And it is significant that the wealth taken from India was used to finance a great portion of the Industrial Revolution, which basically was launched from England and Europe.
Yeah.
Whole changes in the dynamics of commerce, in the dynamics of utilizing labor and people to enrich some specific classes of people.
Capitalism, banking.
Indeed. Now, even though those particular isms were available in that time, they were not mainstream. So you brought together and brought out those particular aspects of society, but in a major way, which required changes of mass beliefs as well. And how all of these things could be arranged, coordinated, accepted, and so on and so forth. So you launched the bowling ball down the lane.
Okay.
But now there was no stopping it. Even the pins would not be enough. So very near that same time, Indian sages and gurus started coming to the Western world, bringing about a different kind of worldview, other than the Protestant worldview that was established quite on a large scale through various Christian denominations. In this way, as an attempt to bring about a sense of balance. It is not long after this that Tolkien wrote his series, and many other authors saw an imminent train wreck heading the way of this new kind of civilization. Not unlike several hundred years before, when the feudal lords were utilizing the masses to enrich themselves, literally creating an entire class of slaves to enrich themselves, and treating those slaves as lesser than dogs, which propelled then those kinds of sanitary and psychological conditions that led to the plagues, the Black Death. to bring about a sweeping change in social orders, which worked for some time. Because if the peasantry all perished, who would be left to till the fields and to tend to the food to feed the upper classes? And this was a serious problem at that time. Thus your Renaissance started picking up.
Oh, yeah.
An influx of creativity and energy and idealisms. The Greek revivals and so on and so forth, bringing about yet other changes. And then soon it was forgotten, and you took these ideas, including the Industrial Revolution, industrializing the world, making the machines do the work. On the one hand, not a bad idea. New understandings about mass transportations, about this and about that, electricity and so on and so forth. So many
Radio,
inventions,
yeah.
communications on a mass scale, never seen before in your kind of world, at least.
Right.
Therefore requiring again a different approach to worldviews. And now all of this could be brought in under the guise of elevating society. Every member of society could then be treated equally, was the advertisements.
Right.
It did not pan out that way. So you are now on the verge of repeating certain cycles again. So now instead of utilizing disease on an epidemic scale, which is right now being considered.
When you say being considered, you mean by the collective?
Indeed.
Ah.
Think of Ebola.
I vote against that.
And many others. But there is also revolutions, which has been used in the past, and which also does not bring the necessary and satisfactory changes. So you are seeking new ways. You are seeking a different kind of exit door. Will you take door number 1, door number 2, door number 3? And what is behind each door? Disease, war, famine, pestilence, or something else?
Something else. That's what I choose.
Indeed. So the potential exists. But war, destruction, will not bring peace, and it never has. Your species is sometimes a little slow to pick up the pace, but you can do it. It requires observation. Many world leaders and what you may call them mucky-mucks of society may seem reluctant because they are fearful of losing what they have. The lower classes also are fearful of change. So everyone is afraid. But if you all come to a consensus, which may not be easily agreed to, everyone benefits. But if you squash everything, no one benefits. So you have then the determining power to make the necessary changes and then revolutionize your consciousness. Because the next kind of revolution will not occur through war and slaughter or through disease and pestilence, but through an upgrade of consciousness, if you like. Super Pentium consciousness, simply to have fun here. But that is the next necessary stage. And we do not like to get into things like you are now approaching the 5th, the 6th, the 7th, the 8th, the 9th, the 10th dimension. It is not our approach. Our approach is a little more practical and down to earth. each of you carries the seed or seeds of change. You are the only ones who can sow it, who can water it, provide light and warmth, and then weed it out when it starts sprouting. And then see that this seed becomes a beautiful tree which brings about the fruits that you desire.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we may speak allegorically, but we are not only addressing your conscious minds, we are addressing your subconscious minds. And again, we must clarify that subconscious mind is simply a point of reference. You understand what it means. But when you keep denying those deeper impulses for change simply because you fear, then you create even more difficulties. Fear always brings hesitation. Trust brings a moving forward. So if you learn to trust whom you are, that you are beneficial beings, that you are not a pariah on the surface of your planet, then you will begin to see the reflected behavior in your social structures. You will be less prone to wiping out everything that moves as a food source until there is nothing left. You will not rape and pillage the earth of all of its goods until there is nothing left. You will not poison and empty your water systems until there is nothing left. You will not pollute the air until you can no longer breathe it and you all die. You will not continue to pollute with pesticides and insecticides that kill all those insects that are necessary for your survival, because you are all interconnected.
Yeah.
You're not on the top rung of the food chain. In fact, your existence is, how do we say, dependent upon everything else. Kill off so many species and suddenly you unleash a chain reaction from which there is no coming back. So the advantages are yours to develop the direction of your future world. And there are so many potentials to choose from. But you must choose something. Do not fight the future because you are afraid to lose the past. Embrace the future as a continuation of the goodwill of the past. And only you can make those changes in the present. Do you perhaps have any inquiries?
Well, I'm a little bit, what you've described is hitting home pretty seriously. I'd like to boil it down for me personally in terms of what I do today. What can I do today to enact what you're describing? Like the world and cultures and societies and wars, I understand that that's a collective thing, but what can I do here today, now?
And that is an absolutely genuine reflection. And it behooves everyone to honor themselves in the same way. What can you do in your home? Is it even possible for one person in their home to actually make a significant change. But that is the whole issue. So every individual can learn to appreciate and put themselves in a state of grace, even for the small things in life. Perhaps their friends and their family, even if they are dysfunctional, that is irrelevant. Everyone has their little quirks, their little personality traits. But first and foremost, develop an appreciation for the state of grace. Become that state of grace. Wherever you cast your eyes, actually see the beautiful things. And if you do not see the beautiful things in life, it is not that the things themselves are not beautiful. It is that you refuse the eyes its true potential.
All right.
You need to develop the eyes to see, the ears to hear, and the heart to feel. Once you do that, then your experience of reality will be transformed. It may not occur in the next 5 minutes. And even if it does not occur in the next 6 minutes, is no cause to say it does not work. Keep at it. You have been conditioned, and you have allowed yourselves to be conditioned for decades. If you allow this very simple process, see the beauty in all things, hear the beautiful things, and feel all the beauty in the world, it will show itself to you with the eyes and the ears and the heart that you now use.
Okay, that's great.
Very simple thing indeed. Simpler could not be described.
Well, what I like about that is that all those things already happen to me in very small ways, almost every day.
They are part of everyone's experience. But when you begin to focus on the darker elements of life and everything the media bombards upon you to create and generate fear states, and you lose sight of and you lose touch with that inner state of grace.
Well, that's very helpful, Kris. Thank you. Because what I'm understanding is, as I say, all of those things happen to me every day. Not every day, but frequently. When I talk about seeing and hearing and feeling beautiful things, and even an overflow like of almost ecstatic appreciation. But I just didn't think that was very important. I just think that was sort of like, oh, I'm getting an ice cream cone, now back to work, like now back to the realities of life.
Most children, for example, experience this on a daily basis if they are allowed to. They go outside, they see the flower, and they are mesmerized, especially if there is a little butterfly on it. They see the kitten or the puppy, they fall in love. They are excited to live every day because they are discovering new things every day. Their world becomes bigger and bigger. It begins to shrink, though, when they are told to stop being childish. Now is the time to grow up. Put away the things of the child. Do not be so stupid. You must now learn what it is to be a man or a woman. You must take responsibility. You must bear the burdens of these things. Because we do as adults, we have become jaded, and you will too. You are not going to escape.
Yeah, and those adults, are doing what they think is the right thing.
As they were taught.
Yeah, they're saying, well, for you to survive in the world, you have to, have some fear and some...
Indeed. You must have your good measure of all of these things to keep you in check. Because nobody likes somebody who is too happy.
It's true. It's true.
So, our humble suggestion then again is to return to that childlike wonderment about the world, that state of grace which sees beautiful things, which hears beautiful things, which feels beautiful things. And see how your life unfolds from that point on. You may feel the little voices inside your head that if you do that one more minute, I will slap you on. Stop that nonsense. You are being irresponsible. You are an adult now. Simply tell these little voices, just wait a moment. Enjoy it with me. Then we will consider it. But for now, this is what I want to focus upon.
That feels completely doable.
And we did say, see the beautiful things in life, hear the beautiful things, feel the beautiful things. Not that everything is beautiful. This is an important distinction again.
Yeah.
This might be part of your personal experience.
Okay, well that's very helpful.
Indeed. So our humble suggestion is, be the beautiful things in life that you want to see, hear, feel, touch.
Sure.
All of these. And you do not have to take our word for this. Test it out. Do it. See what comes of it.
I'm going to do it.
And with that, we return Joseph to you, and we thank you for your lovely consideration.
Thank you, Kris. Well, that's our show today, folks. And honestly, I thought it was a really good one. They're all good. So we're going to do this again next week. And thanks for watching.